And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we're going to be looking at some possible free agents that the Washington Commanders could go after. We're also going to be looking at some possible trade targets that the Washington Commanders might explore at getting via the trade market if they do become available. And so you can find this particular article on Bleacher Report if you want to go ahead and take a look at what we're seeing here today. But we know pretty much what is going on from our free agents. We talked about this before, that the Washington Commanders have various, or not various, they have a lot of free agents to really address here in the offseason. And I think with our free agents that we have here in house, I think that a lot of our free agents were really key contributors. And so I think that that is going to be an interesting decision for the front office as far as what direction they go with our own free agents. And I really do believe that it is going to come down to just continuing to keep the foundation here with the Washington Commanders. I think that that has really been the biggest change, is just the foundation has changed from the top all the way to the bottom. And it definitely trickles down into these players and some of these veteran players that were key for us. But make no mistake about it, the Washington Commanders are going to have to really make some big decisions when it comes down to bringing back some of our veterans here. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into really the main point of the show, which is, these potential free agents and then trade targets. And so these are players, once again, that if the trade market opens up, if these players do become available, is it something that makes sense for the Washington Commanders to really go after them? And so starting with right here at the top, as far as really upgrading the defense and Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, I think that if either player became available, I certainly think the Washington Commanders should explore it. I think it's going to come down to just really how much draft capital it is going to take to get these players, because I just think that this front office and the way that they really run things now, I just see it as a team that is thinking more towards the long term versus making a splash that's going to help us just for this short term. And what I mean by that is I don't see us leveraging off our future for just a short amount of time with some of these stars, because make no mistake about it. Like I think that, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, they absolutely would be game changers for us, but we'd have to figure out, is it going to be worth giving up some of our draft capital for these players that maybe they're good for the next 2, maybe 3 seasons? Hopefully you want longer than that, but still, if it's going to turn into a situation where these players are not going to perform as long as you need, and then you're still going to have to address that, it certainly hurts you for the long term if you give up some of this draft capital. But make no mistake about it, I would love these players if available. I just think that maybe, especially with the Vegas Raiders, I think that it's probably going to be a situation, if you're going to get him, I could see that becoming where you're using a lot of draft capital to bring him over. With Myles Garrett, I mean, maybe the same thing there. I think that maybe you're looking at 2 teams that are probably looking to rebuild, and so it is going to take some significant draft capital to get them. Next up, when you look at the offensive end, 2 names that they listed, Deebo Samuel, and then also Garrett Wilson. I'm more sold on Garrett Wilson. I just like the way that Garrett Wilson really can operate as far as taking the top off of a defense. And I also think that, to me, in what I saw with him in some of his games and some of the things I've seen on tape, is that he has a great ability to really work the middle of the field. And I think that that really showed in kind of the offensive struggles that the Jets had. And so I could see him working with Terry McLaurin. Maybe you're hopefully bringing back Zach Ertz. You still maybe have Austin Eckler out there as well, kind of working alongside of Garrett Wilson. Like, I think that suddenly that becomes a very dynamic type of wide receiving room. Like, I think that you have that. And I mean, that receiving core can be dangerous. And so, I like him a lot. With Deebo Samuel, I kind of think more like, just maybe yards after catch type of player. I think that you probably get a bit more of like a running kind of option out of the wide receiving room when you go with Deebo Samuel. So make no mistake about it. He's played in some big games. He can make some plays for you, but I think that he maybe adds a little bit more as far as, a running wide receiver. You probably see a lot more end arounds and things like that for him. But make no mistake about it. I mean, he's tough. He runs hard. He's going to catch the ball over the middle of the field. And like I said, just be able to bounce off of contact and make some plays. But if I were to pick between the two, I like Garrett Wilson a little bit more than Debo Samuels. Next up, they mentioned Kyle Pitts and how he's really underutilized in Atlanta. Would he maybe be an option here to maybe go with Zach Ertz or something like that? And so with Kyle Pitts, again, here's a player that, I've seen that he's done some great things for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not sure if I'm necessarily sold on him from a consistency standpoint. I get the underused kind of thing, and I definitely think he would get utilized with Washington with Zach Ertz. I mean, you just think about the potential if you can go back and get to where Cal Pitts had a terrific season. Pair that with Zach Ertz, who had a pretty good season this last season. I mean, yeah, that's pretty dangerous when you got both of those players working the middle of the field and maybe kind of stretching that defense a little bit more. But Kyle Pitts, I don't think I necessarily see the Washington Commanders maybe pivoting for that. When it comes down to, what they would maybe do for just outright targeting free agents, I think they mentioned a name that I could see the Washington Commanders being linked to, and that is T. Higgins. I think that when you think of a player like Garrett Wilson and then you think of a player like T. Higgins, I think that T. Higgins is a player that reminds me of Garrett Wilson. And I think that both of those players can certainly stretch the defense. I like what they can do. When you look at Joe Burrow, that style of play, I think it really kind of links with maybe what you see with Jaden Daniels, and the same thing with Garrett Wilson. So I could see that happening. With Ward from the 49ers, like I definitely see that the Washington Commanders can go out there and get a veteran cornerback. I definitely think that we should probably explore that. I think it's interesting here that we're linked to a pass rusher from the Giants and then also to a linebacker from the Eagles. I mean, anything could happen here. Obviously, I would like to see this team, go ahead and keep Bobby Wagner and probably really go from there, and Dante Fowler Jr. as well. But, these are just a couple of names that maybe the Washington Commanders could explore via free agency here. I could definitely see that. Another name that is not listed here that I think really would be interesting for the Washington Commanders, especially if they're looking at the wide receiver position, why not go after a guy like Chris Godwin? I think that Chris Godwin makes a lot of sense here. I've been talking about, maybe going out there, stretching the field, being able to work just the middle too as well. So a player that can work off of Terry McLaurin. I think a player like Chris Godwin would be terrific if you can get him. He's proven he can be a 1,000-yard receiver. And look, he's not necessarily a player that I think that you have to continue to just dial up a lot of plays to get it to him. Like, I think that Chris Godwin has gotten so good with finding ways to get open in the middle of zones and things like that. His experience alone working with Tom Brady, I would love to see him over in Washington with Jaden Daniels. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this most recent, free agent, maybe targets that the Washington Commanders could go after. Some of these trade targets as well. We'll be talking some more about just the abundance of free agents that are out there. I believe March 12th is going to be the official startup for free agency. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking more mock trades and things like that. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure you press the like, share, and comment here. And go Washington Commanders. And I will see you on the next one. All right. Peace.